Here is Donald Trump Jr. Going on, well, he finally found a friendly place to go.
Safe haven.
A safe haven, right.
Safe space.
Sean Hannity last night on Fox News where he said, this whole thing ain't nothing, Sabrina.
Oh, yes. Did you tell your father anything about this?
No. It was such a nothing. There was nothing to tell. I mean, I wouldn't have even remembered it until you start scouring through the stuff. It was literally just a wasted 20 minutes, which was a shame.
Yeah, and if I had to do it over again, maybe I would think twice.
In retrospect, I probably would have done things a little differently. Honestly, my takeaway when all of this was going on is that someone has information on our opponent. You know, things are going a million miles an hour. You know what it's like to be on a campaign. I've been reading about scandals that people were probably underreporting for a long time, so maybe it was something that had to do with one of those things.
There it is, and his father tweeted out this morning that Donald Jr. last night on Sean Hannity was did a great job, was convincing, and he was innocent, and this is still the greatest witch hunt in history.
Yes, even after we now have emails where he's being told of a Russian government effort to aid his father.
Yeah, the emails, front page, New York Times, and front page, Washington Post, all over the place, yeah.
I love that in retrospect, I would have done things differently is exactly what Hillary Clinton said about the use of her private email server. There's so much irony here.
There is so much.
And it's of course Hannity, who is one of the most vocal proponents of Trump's and an unwavering supporter. So frankly speaking, even if you were to try and take any of the explanations by Trump Jr. Oh, another tweet. On their face, he has no credibility. His story changed every step of the way. So why should we believe anything he says when in the course of 72 hours, you had lie after lie after lie unraveled because the New York Times kept reporting and reporting.
Right.
And there was this drip. You think back to that first explanation on Saturday that this meeting was just about adoption and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
And Jared and Paul Manafort didn't even know what the meeting was going to be about. I didn't really know what it was going to be about. I didn't even know that she had ties to the Russian government. And now you quite clearly see not only was it laid out for him explicitly that they had what they called highly sensitive information to incriminate Hillary Clinton offered by the Russian government, but also that he forwarded those emails to Jared Kushner and Paul Manafort. That's very key, too.
Yeah.
Because Jared Kushner is actually a senior advisor to the White House.
Right.
Trump Jr. is not.
Right. So let's pause right there just to we've read them a couple of times. I want to read again the pertinent parts of these emails just to underscore your point. So, and Jared Kushner and Paul Manafort are copied on these emails. This gets to the point of when they said originally, first that there were no meetings. Well, now we know where there were a whole score of meetings, but this particular meeting. And then they said it was all about adoption. Well, now we know it wasn't. And they said, well, they did know ahead of time, what this meeting was all about. Here's the email that set it up. The first one that introduced it from this Rob Goldstone, who by himself is a burlesque character to start with.
An understatement.
Who says to Donald, so his connection is he represents the rock star whose daddy, who was appeared in the Miss Universe contest, sang a couple of numbers for the Miss Universe contest, Donald Trump's Miss Universe contest in Moscow. His daddy is the big developer, businessman close to Vladimir Putin, who tried to put a Trump hotel deal together with Donald Trump in Moscow. So he's got this connection to the Trump family. He writes to Donald Jr., the Crown Prosecutor of Russia met with Eamon's father this morning, and in their meeting offered to provide the Trump campaign with some official documents and information that would incriminate Hillary and her dealings with Russia and would be very useful to your father. Here's the part that's been highlighted in the New York Times. This is obviously very high level and sensitive information, but is part of Russia and its government's support for Mr. Trump. And Donald Trump, within 17 minutes, replies, "Thanks, Rob. I appreciate that. I'm on the road at the moment. Perhaps I can speak to Eamon first. Seems we have some time. Here's the key part, underscored again or highlighted. And if it's what you say, I love it.
Oh, my gosh.
What does that say other than...
There's
right?
no way
You got some dirt on Hillary?
There's no way to spin that. There isn't. And this is as explicit as you could imagine. And so even the explanation that they've given that nothing came of the meeting, that's like the other spin that, well, they didn't actually collude in the end because they didn't get information, which again, they have no credibility. So we can't even take that at face value. But let's just say you even went with that. The emails show a willingness to collude with the Russians.
Yeah.
And I was on Capitol Hill yesterday asking Republicans,
yeah.
you know,
yeah.
in the hallways about that very fact that, okay, because they all kept saying, we need, you would expect them to, it's premature, we need to know more, we want him to testify before the relevant committees. You know, we don't want to just jump to conclusions. And I said, okay, but in the email, there's very clearly a willingness to collude with the Russians. He is told, and I read that very same part to them, that the Russian government is trying to aid his father, and this is highly sensitive information that would incriminate Hillary. And of course, a lot of them just deflected and said, well, Bob Mueller, special counsel, is looking into this, so we'll see where the investigation leads. It's concerning. That's about it.
Yeah.
It's like, how many times are you going to play this? Imagine if it were Hillary Clinton game. Imagine if Chelsea
can't do
Clinton.
That anymore.
No.
I can't do that anymore.
I know, but it's like, imagine if Chelsea Clinton had exchanged these emails through the Clinton Foundation with anyone. Forget even Russia of all like GOP primary foes. And
impeachment hearings would have already started.
Impeachment hearings would have already begun.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Right. Well, I don't know whether you had a chance to talk to Senator Cruz from Texas, right? Others went even further in terms of trying to dismiss this, right? For Ted Cruz saying, first of all, nobody in Texas gives a damn.
Washington is obsessed right now. It is the Democratic talking point du jour.
Yeah.
But when I go back to Texas, nobody asks about Russia.
I had Bill Cassidy of Louisiana also say, oh, I did a teletown hall, and there's like thousands of people who called in. No one asked about Russia. Ted Cruz said it's a media obsession as well, and tried to say, well, the Obama-Clinton agenda was one of appeasement. So we're still running somehow against Obama-Clinton as if the campaign is ongoing, when it's like one person sits in the Oval Office. It's not Hillary Clinton or Barack Obama, for that matter. And this is not about foreign policy. It's about a hostile foreign actor having, as we know, interfered in our elections. And now it looks like, quite clearly, there was at least evidence of a desire to collude on the part of the campaign that
Remember, it is the Democratic talking point du jour.
Yeah, right.
By the way, like Ted Cruz does make a point, right? That there are probably people in his district, there are a lot of Republicans who just aren't talking about it because, you know, for whatever reason, they got bigger fish to fry. But that doesn't mean that it's not something that we should be taking seriously and should be taking action on.
The other night at dinner, a fellow reporter asked me, so he said, so where were you in Watergate? And I said, I was alive. I said, well, first of all, I was in California in Watergate, and I didn't know anything about it. He said, what? And, you know, I didn't for a long time. And I remember coming back because, grew up in Delaware. My dad's in Fenwick Island. We went to visit him, and I'm reading the Washington Post. And this is the early days of Watergate, but this was Bernstein and Woodward in their early reporting. And I'm thinking, oh, my God, this is pretty serious stuff, right? But the rest of the country didn't know what was going on. Now, it became kind of a big thing, but I'm not surprised that right now a lot of people are not up on all the day-to-day stuff as we are of this Russia investigation. But
it also should be pointed out that Watergate took like over 2 years.
Yeah, exactly. I guess that's my point.
Sorry,
right. It took time to build up, right? But when you have, it is against the law to accept help from a foreign government to influence the outcome of an election. and when you have concrete evidence that help is offered by a foreign government and the number one person, like in the campaign, really saying he's eager to get it, it may not be concrete evidence of collusion, but it certainly is the intent to collude.
And the other important thing about Watergate is that even as Nixon was poised to resign, I mean, once he realized he was going to be impeached, he still held support from a majority of Republicans. And now you're in an even more hyper-partisan environment. So, of course, it's not going to reach a lot of people in Ted Cruz's district who are, on the Trump train through and through, which is why you saw such an about face from Ted Cruz, who fought most bitterly against Trump for the Republican nomination. And people have taken and chosen, I should say, people have chosen their sides. And we know enough about Trump supporters that really there's nothing that is going to push them off the cliff or get them to withdraw their support for him. That doesn't mean that you ignore exactly what you said, that this is about American democracy and everything that this country claims to be built upon. So are you going to let someone rewrite the rules just because polls indicate that he's still popular? He could very well still be popular if he were to get impeached. He could still be popular if he were to just get sick of it and resign. That's not going to change the crime at hand. I also think, again, so much more hyper-partisan now. People will, unlike Watergate, you had this really great thorough reporting. Then you have it now, but now the deniers, the Trump supporters will just go on and read whatever fake news they want on the internet and convince themselves that this is all some kind of grand conspiracy. They have more tools at their disposal to live in an alternate universe, the alternative facts universe. And so, sure, you're not going to see it trickle down into public opinion in quite the same way as you may have once before.